looking at your spreadsheet here, I want to show you the difference between the way I'm approaching it and the way you're approaching it. The first thing is these are your answers for just part one, and then I'm going to hit Control Accent. And when I hit Control Accent, I see your formulas. It shows you all the formulas and whether the cell is a formula or it's actually typed in number. So if you hit Control Accent, you can go back and forth between whether there are formulas in the spreadsheet or not. So what we're looking for, of course, is formulas. So if you look at yours, you've got a few numbers in here. If I bring up, and I'm just going to pull up here my version of this, and you can see that I've got my first quarter sales typed in here, but then I have salaries, ads, and a few other things that are calculated. So if you hit Control Accent here, you can see that I've got numbers that are actual variables that are solid numbers, but everything else has been calculated and they're referring to other cells. And in fact, I've got a list here of all of the variables that are part of the problem. Beginning cash, accounts receivable, beginning inventory, equipment and purchases. So you just take all that and you just write it all in, and then when you look at the answers, you've got the numbers there, and you look at the answer here, we've got the same answers. Whoops, let me pull yours up. Yours is 1284 here, 80, 120, so on and so forth. You can see we have the same numbers here. But when I hit Control Accent here, there's not one number typed in here. Not one. And the reason for that is, if I come back up here, and this is a budget, right? So we don't know what's going to happen. What if I want to change this to 50,000? Right? Is that going to change anything? Yeah, it's going to change all of the actual calculations here. See, it's no longer 1.2834 or whatever it was. It's now 934. Well, I did that because I just changed this number. If I hit undo, it goes back to 400,000. All these numbers change, and this goes back to 1284. So, and that carries through the whole spreadsheet. So when you think about how you want to set this up, is we want to be able to do analysis here. So when we put numbers into our budget, then all of a sudden the vice president of so-and-so could come in and say, this isn't going to be 400,000, it's going to be 300,000. What's that do to your numbers? Well, if you do it your way, and I start changing some of these numbers around with regard to sales, I have to come in here and change all these numbers. You've calculated this by hand. Well, if this number changes, then you've got to go back and calculate this number. By doing it with a list, the way I've done it here, of all your variables, if cash sales are no longer going to be 20%, they're going to be 10%. And credit sales are going to be 90%. There, I've recalculated the whole spreadsheet. Everything changed. So I don't have to worry about changing all the other numbers. So this is the most important thing here. Because you can calculate the numbers and do a calculator, that's fine. But if you set it up properly, that way you can do analysis. You can change your variables. You can change the equipment purchases. You can change your beginning cash. You can change your accounts payable. All these numbers change. And then when you get to the calculation portion, all of these numbers will reflect those changes. And these numbers are carried through the rest of the calculations. So no number is put in here. As you can see, I'm going through all these numbers here. No number is put in here that isn't a calculation. The only numbers that are put in are the numbers that are the problem variables that are given. Everything else you calculate. And that's the most important thing here. So don't worry about it on your homework in week 2, but this is what you need to do for the project. This is what you absolutely need to learn, because this is so important going forward and using it in spreadsheets. You're never going to do just one calculation. You're going to do high and low. You're going to do a range of calculations. You're going to do different variables. You're going to stress test the variables. You know, what happens if our equipment purchases change? What happens if our building and equipment changes? What happens if accounts payable change? All of these things change. Plus, you've got these other statistics here. Desired ending inventory. What if we change that? What if we change how the purchaser paid? We got a new deal. And then the salaries and ads and so on. All these are variables that can change. So what we want to do is put numbers in where numbers are given, and then be able to adjust them. But then anytime there's a formula to calculate a new number, for example, here's salaries. If you go to salaries, it's B28. Well, if I go down here to B28, salaries ranges is 2,700. Why did I put salaries up here as B28? Because if I change it here, it changes here. And therefore, these are calculation fields. So all I did was reference that cell. But I don't have to remember to reference it everywhere. I just represent it in my input. So even if it's just a straight representation, don't worry about it. Put the number in the calculation field. So most of the calculations here below just represent other numbers above and then the calculation. So sum is obviously addition, the asterisk is multiplication, and so on. And so you can see that this allows you to adjust very quickly the entire spreadsheet. So that's the most important thing. If you have questions, obviously I'm always one phone call or one text away. Thanks so much.